Welcome. If you're here, welcome. All right. This is how we do it. I'm pretty excited testing some new software here. Today we're going to be doing a short teaching slash Q&A slash this is really just a test. I want to see what's going down. Man, cool. In this video, as a note that this video will be deleted in 24 hours. So, this is pretty interesting. I hope to have more of this happening. This is a new streaming software that we got, and I'm just trying to mess with it and see what's going on. So awesome. Welcome to our chat today. Welcome to our teaching, our Q&A. Hopefully there will be a ton of folks joining and hanging out. If not, that's going to be totally okay. Like I said, this is some new software. Testing this out and seeing, so you get to see what's going on before anybody else. Awesome. So, all right. So if you're here, say what's up, say hi. I'm going to say hi in the comments. Hi, what's going on? Today I wanted to actually, so if you've been hanging out with us here, you've seen that we've been doing a Power of Awareness reading series. And we've been reading and we've been discussing the Power of Awareness. And I want to do a live read through and discussion of one of my favorite chapters in the Power of Awareness. And that's actually a chapter we just did recently. It's called Chapter 13, Acceptance. Acceptance. I love this one because it speaks to the magnitude of power that we experience when we choose to really run with this stuff. So, if you've got any friends or family you think should join the screen, let's bring them on. I'm going to be posting in our Facebook group. If you're not in our Facebook group, go ahead and join. It's the realityhackercommunity.com. Cool. All right, acceptance. Awesome. Good stuff. If you're here, hey, Kelly, so good to see you. I hope you're enjoying the stream. I hope this looks cool. It's going to look a lot cooler over the next couple times of doing this. So, Chapter 13 is acceptance. Acceptance. Man's perceptions are not bounded by organs of perception. He perceives more than sense, though ever so acute, can discover. Man's perceptions are not bounded by organs of perception. He perceives more than sense can discover. However much you seem to be living in a material world, you are actually living in a world of imagination. The outer physical events of life are the fruit of forgotten blossom times, results of previous and usually forgotten states of consciousness. They are the ends, running true to oft-times forgotten imaginative origins. Whenever you become completely absorbed in an emotional state, you are at that moment assuming the feeling of the state fulfilled. If persisted in whatsoever you are intensely emotional about, you will experience in your world. And these periods of absorption, of concentrated attention, are the beginnings of the things that you harvest. And it is in such moments that you are exercising your creative power, the only creative power that there is. At the end of these periods or moments of absorption, you speed from these imaginative states where you have not been physically to where you were physically an instant ago. And in these periods, the imagined state, it's so real that when you return to the objective world, you find that it is not the same as the imagined state. It is an actual shock. You've seen something in imagination with such vividness that now you wonder whether the evidence of your senses can now be trusted. And like Keats, you ask, was it a vision or a waking dream? Fled is that music, do I wake or do I sleep? This shock reverses your time sense, and by this it's meant that instead of your experience resulting from your past, it now becomes the result of being in imagination where you have not been physically. In effect, this moves you across a bridge of incident to the physical realization of your imagined state. And the man who at will can assume whatever state he pleases has found the keys to the kingdom of heaven. These keys are desire, imagination, and a steadily focused attention on the feeling of the wish fulfilled. And to such a man, any undesirable objective fact is no longer a reality, and the ardent wish is no longer a dream. Prove me now herewith, saith the Lord of hosts, if I will not open you the windows of heaven and pour you out a blessing, that there shall not be room enough to receive it. The windows of heaven may not be opened and the treasures seized by a strong will, but they open of themselves and present their treasures as a free gift. A gift that comes when absorption reaches such a degree that it results in a feeling of complete acceptance. The passage from your present state to the feeling of your wish fulfilled is not across a gap. There is actual continuity between the so-called real and unreal. And to cross from one state to another, you simply extend your feelers, trust your touch, and enter fully into the spirit of what you are doing. Not by might, not by power, but by my spirit, says the Lord of hosts. Assume the spirit, the feeling of the wish fulfilled, and you will have opened the windows to receive the blessing. To assume a state is to get into the spirit of it. Your triumphs will be a surprise only to those who did not know your hidden passage from the state of longing to the assumption of the wish fulfilled. And the Lord of hosts will not respond to your wish until you have assumed the feeling of already being what you want to be. For acceptance is the channel of his action. Acceptance is the Lord of hosts in action. The biggest reason that most people can't accept that they are who they want to be is because they are convinced that who they are is the body. And when you're convinced that who you are is the body-mind complex, the individual, you automatically have to conform to the laws of that individuality, one of which being that transformation or an jump across seeming timelines or into another reality that is so contradictory to the one that you're experiencing. This feat right here of creating is not as much of a process of doing anything other than accepting that you are who you want to be. Okay? However much you seem to be living in a material world, you are actually living in a world of imagination. The outer physical events of life are the fruit of forgotten blossom times, results of previous and usually forgotten states of consciousness. You know, if we carried 100% mental discipline, if we really carried a strong awareness of our states and ultimately the circumstances, we'd find correlations all the time. The reason that it's so hard to find correlations between states and circumstances is because we're not necessarily paying attention. We don't have a disciplined mind or attention. Now, if you are able to correlate and understand how and which circumstances are relating to and blossomed of what states, then you're one step ahead of most people, because most are sitting in this place where they're curious what action to take. And here's the thing. If you're curious of what action you need to take, then it's probably good that you do one of two things. The truth. You do one of two things. You just really go and start doing what feels the best, or you simply generate that state again. You generate those emotions, because here's the thing. Action is a byproduct of emotions, right? Action is a byproduct of emotions. Emotions are a byproduct of our concept of ourself. And so naturally, if we can generate the state that is equal to desire fulfilled, we will take action. This is not an if, it's a will, it's an inevitability, because action is a byproduct of paradigms or concept of self. We can't ever act outside of our concept of ourself. And so what we are accepting of true now is ultimately the things that we are acting out and making into physical experiences. They become real and solidified in consciousness, and the moment we've assumed them and we begin dwelling on the inner dialogue around them, and then we begin creating those mental scenarios around them, and we're generating and we're living in that state over and over and over again, all of the action that we are taking while being in this state is in total alignment with the state itself. So naturally, the action is only producing the result of more of the state that created it. Whenever you become completely absorbed in an emotional state, you are at that moment of assuming the feeling of the state fulfilled. So there's so many people that have so many questions about what it means to be in the wish fulfilled. Neville says it right here. Whenever you have become completely absorbed in an emotional state, you are at that moment assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Then in other chapters, you'll hear him say, crowding all ideas out of consciousness. The moment a single idea, a single implication that your desire has been fulfilled sits in your consciousness fully without distraction is the moment it becomes solidified in consciousness. However, the biggest problem that I see people having is, okay, what do I do after I've done this? And if you're not getting the inspiration to do anything, here's the really, 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 really important part. You're not in the state. If you're not getting the inspiration to do anything, you're not in the state. This is exactly how you'll know. Take a look at the last week. If there's a state you've been trying to live in, take a look at your action and your results. What are those correlating to? What are those relating back to? What state are those coming back to? If persisted in whatever you are intensely emotional about, you'll experience in your world. These periods of absorptions are the beginnings of things that you harvest. It's in such moments that you're exercising your creative power, the only creative power that there is, right? So here's the really amazing thing, is that your creative power is the creative power. So whenever you exercise your creative power, because you're not the body-mind, you are the divinity that inhabits the body-mind, which is also the divinity that inhabits everything else. When you're exercising your creative power, you are exercising the creative power in the universe. There's not your power and then a higher power. Your power and a sense of higher power are the same power. The difference is, and the reason we believe there's a higher power is because we are identifying as an individual. We're still identifying as the body and not imagination, but man is all imagination. And when man understands that he is all imagination, shifting a state will be as easy as flipping a pancake. The reason it's so hard to shift our state is because we believe that the evidence that our senses is bringing to mind is telling us something that if we don't pay attention to this, our survival is at risk. We're literally worried about survival when we are divinity experiencing duality. We're worried about survival when we are infinite beings having finite experiences. Do you see how ridiculous that is? That is really weird. That's really weird. Oh, man. Wow. All right. Well, now that's all right. Well, I do apologize about that. Somebody was commenting some inappropriate things in the comment section. That was really weird. Okay. All right. And here we get another indication of when you've actually hit the state. How do you know when you've actually entered into the wish fulfilled? Well, one thing he says right here, in these periods, the imagined state is so real that when you return to the objective world, you find that it is not the same as the imagined state, right? And it becomes a shock. Have you ever done that? Have you ever been so deep inside of a contemplative session, a meditative session, you want to call it a feel-real session, that's totally your choice, and you come back to, you open your eyes and you're like, wow, I was so imbued with this vision, with this imagined scene that I was creating. If you've ever experienced that, like I know for me, you can experience it once, and then the minute you experience it the first time, it becomes so much easier to experience it again. It's almost like building a new muscle, right? Entering into new states is very much consistently, and entering into new states your dominant habit is very much like building a new muscle, right? So the first time you're tapping into these feelings of abundance, it may be hard, and it's simply because you haven't exercised your muscle to do that before, right? Just like when you go into a gym, I was just making the motion, right? When you go into a gym and you pick up a 20-pound weight for the first time in your life, and you've never, and you don't lift weights on a regular basis, the chances are it's going to be hard. But guess what? You go in the next day, and you go in the next day, and you go in the day after that, and all of a sudden you're lifting 20, you're lifting 30, you're lifting 50, you're lifting 100, and it works the same way with imagination. It works the same way with attention, with disciplined imagination. But you have to choose. You have to choose to be emotionally absorbed by the thing that you're wanting, by the fulfillment of the thing that you're wanting, right? Because here's the thing, and this is what so many people miss out on, is that you don't need to learn how to manifest. You've been manifesting your entire life. You need to learn what constitutes a manifestation, what constitutes a thing coming to pass. And what constitutes things coming to pass is total emotional absorption around said things. We find this happening in all areas of our life: relationships, finances, careers, the scenes, the dramas that we get so mentally absorbed in, and the stories that we're entertaining when we're at our desk at work or when we're at home and we're not talking to nobody. Those periods of emotional absorption are absolutely creating more of themselves in our lives. Literally, by entering into these states, we are commanding carbon copies of them to be created in the world around us. It's not a mystery, it's discipline. It's not some far off thing, it's discipline. But you know what? We live in a society that wants to take your attention every 30 seconds and wants to get your attention here and go buy this and go do this and go to... And don't get me wrong, that's all fine and dandy. But if you can't sit still for 30 seconds, for 1 minute, it makes sense why you're not able to manifest what you want. So much of manifestation comes from stillness, because it's returning to that place of stillness and then entering into the desired state that really creates a ripened womb for our subconscious. Returning to that stillness, that simple awareness of being, and then slipping into the state desired, because it's the state itself that creates the physical event. Your only obligation is to give intense emotional absorption to the state of the wish fulfilled. Whenever you become completely absorbed in an emotional state, you are at that moment assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled. And this is what is that's it right there. That's it. The problem is, we'll do it one day, and then the next day we'll do it again, and then the next day, and then maybe next week we'll come around and we'll be like, I've been doing this for quite a while and I'm not seeing anything show up yet. I'm not literally entering into that conversation. All we're doing is digging up the seed. We're digging it up. We planted the seed. We've been watering it. We've been treating it really well. And all of a sudden, it's just not here. I wonder why. Man, you're so powerful. Oh, wow. There's some sunlight on my face. All right. I'll try not to get that in your face. Oh. I love the last couple paragraphs of this chapter. The windows of heaven may not be opened and the treasures seized by a strong will, but they open of themselves and present their treasures as a free gift, a gift that comes when absorption reaches such a degree that it results in a feeling of complete acceptance, right? So here we're finding another master key, another correlation. It's intense emotional absorption that creates acceptance, right? And it's acceptance that creates naturalness, and to the degree in which we are natural about the thing desired, to that degree it appears in our life. The windows of heaven are not opened by a strong will and by force, but they give themselves as a free gift. This is what's amazing. Think about this. Think about a gift. A gift is given with no expectation of anything in return. A gift is given as a gift of, oftentimes it's love. A true gift is given out of love, out of desire for happiness. And so, the really amazing thing here is that you're tapping into your own storehouse. And what's happening here is the more you're living, and here's the amazing thing. The treasures of heaven, okay, get this. You want to write this down. The treasures of heaven present themselves as a free gift to those who are emotionally absorbed to such a degree that there is acceptance, right? And here is the total polar opposite, but same degree of truth. The treasures of hell. The treasures of hell present themselves as a free gift. A gift that comes when emotional absorption reaches such a degree that it results in a feeling of complete acceptance. There it is right there. Because we're doing this regardless, right? These treasures are presenting themselves to us either way every day, and it's all dependent upon our emotional absorption that's leading us to these places of acceptance. And so if we're dealing with perpetual cycles of lack and loss in our lives, there's a very high degree that the treasures of hell are presenting themselves to us as a free gift thanks to our decision, whether conscious or unconscious, to persist in emotional absorption around undesired things. So here's the cool thing. You get gifts just for being human, just for being an emotional being. Your job now is to discipline your emotions to where you become consumed by the good things. Not only in yourself, but in your life. And you become consumed by the feelings of your desires being fulfilled. The passage from your present state to the feeling of your wish fulfilled is not across a gap. It's not across a gap. There is continuity between the so-called real and unreal. To cross from one state to another, simply extend your feelers, trust your touch, and enter fully into the spirit of what you are doing. And the truth is, extend your feelings, extend your feelers, trust your touch. So if you're sitting in an imaginal scene and your eyes are closed, and you're really entering in first person into this world where all of your desires are fulfilled, it's really important that you give these scenes the greatest degree of sensory vividness that you possibly can. And this means developing things to touch, hands to shake, people to hug, items to feel, fruits to smell. With my personal visualization sessions, I hone myself into a meditative state with a room. I've created a room that's kind of like, it's a home base that's a portal to wherever else I want to go. So when I'm meditating, I go into this room, and this room is really where I access that awareness of being that soft place that really allows me to choose any state because they're all a part of me, right? So maybe that'll be good for you. Maybe you need to develop a room that you can get really familiar with, that you can, does it have a bed? Does it have a table? Does it have a lampstand? What color are the walls? Where are the power outlets? Does it have a fan? Is it on a second story? Is there a porch? Is there windows? Is there doors out to the porch? What kind of doors are there? Are there windows on the doors? What kind of bed are you in? Do you have a nightstand? What color is the door? What kind of carpet is there? Carpet is it right? There's so many details. And the more details, the better, because that's what our brain is taken by. It's taken by detail. And the thing is about this whole external world out here, because of the culture that we live in, it's almost a natural default to be enslaved to these external sensory impressions because they're always going off, which is why I like to spend as much time alone as I absolutely can, because I believe that spending time by yourself is imperative. It's I don't need to believe it, because it is. It's imperative to really disciplining your attention. Sure, there's something to be said about being out in your daily activities and disciplining then, but you know what? If you don't have discipline when you're all alone, if you don't have integrity or character while you're all alone that's in alignment with the person you want to be, you're not going to find yourself having that oh my gosh, man. Did I ever did weed? First it's something about I have no idea what relevance that has to this. So we're just going to continue to move forward. If you have questions about what we're talking about, please feel free to chime in. Assume the spirit, the feeling of the wish fulfilled, and you will have opened the windows to receive the blessing. So I don't have something to write with. If I did, I would write it out like this. There's some really big correlations here that I think are super important. Whenever you become completely absorbed in an emotional state, you're at that moment assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Okay, here's fact number 1. The windows of heaven may not be opened and the treasures seized by a strong will, but they open of themselves and present their treasures as a free gift, a gift that comes when absorption reaches such a degree that it results in a feeling of complete acceptance. And then we find here in the last paragraph, assume the spirit, the feeling of the wish fulfilled, and you will have opened the windows to receive the blessing. Whenever you become completely emotionally absorbed in a state, you're assuming the wish fulfilled. The treasures of heaven present themselves as a free gift to those in whom emotional absorption reaches such a peak that it produces feelings of acceptance, and receiving the blessing is done by assuming the spirit, entering into the feeling of the wish fulfilled. So we find that over and over and over throughout this chapter, we're told that the key to manifestation is emotional acceptance. It's emotional acceptance of who you are wanting to be. Because that's what's going on here. You have an emotional acceptance right now, and you're creating from this place. But you also possess, as we learned in chapter 11, I believe it was, that you possess the power of intervention, which is the power to change things from this point right now. And the way you do that is become emotionally dominant in the things that you are wanting, emotionally dominant in the feelings of your desires being fulfilled. And if you can do this, you will live a life of awakened imagination. But the most important thing here in all of this, it's disciplining your attention. It's disciplining your imagination. It's being mindful of these conversations. What's going on up here? Who are you talking to? Who are you having conversations with? What scenes are you imagining? You know, it reminds me of the story, we read this recently, of the woman who she's a fashion designer, and her boss is constantly, telling her what, she is doing wrong, and how she sucks, and how she's not good, and blah, 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 blah. And all the meanwhile, she's carrying in these conversations in her head of, if I could get him alone, I would give him a piece of my mind. And all of it, in the meantime, literally perpetuating that behavior towards her via the passage of her mental conversations. And what happens? She shifts those mental conversations. She begins having conversations with her boss as if she was acknowledged, as if her work was valued and treasured. And what happens? Her boss's behavior changes. And this is what's really amazing. Is that this world is simply and truthfully you pushed out. And there's absolutely nothing you can do to change that. The world is you pushed out, and there's nothing you can do to change that. I think that's the most amazing part. So I hope you liked our new stream. Hope you liked our little live teaching. As a reminder, this video will be deleted in 24 hours. So if you're going to watch it, oh, awesome. I manifested Neville's ladder for 2 months. I imagine just 3 days, but it took me 2 months. I managed to forget about it. Yeah. The ladder exercise is one of my favorites, because what's really cool here is when you are doing the ladder exercise and you're really focusing on getting yourself up the ladder, it takes emotional focus to feel, right? So when I go and I feel a ladder, I'm feeling, and I'll keep you updated on this as I'm doing it right now, I feel the cold, edges of the ladder. I feel the bar in between the middle of my feet, right? Really choosing to feel those details out. Man, that alone is building your emotional attention, your disciplined imagination. And yeah, most people end up climbing a ladder because that's exactly how this works, right? Whether it takes 2 months or 2 years, the body follows our states of consciousness, right? Wherever the state is, the body follows. Wherever your state is, your body will follow. And so if you persist in the feelings of your wish fulfilled, if you are emotionally absorbed in an emotional state, completely absorbed in an emotional state, you are assuming the wish fulfilled. This is from chapter 13 of The Power of Awareness by Neville. And with that said, I appreciate you guys being here. If you go ahead, like and subscribe. We've got a ton of lectures from Neville on our channel, a ton of teachings, and we're going to be adding hundreds and hundreds more over the next couple years. So with that being said, we'll talk soon.